Well, Joel, we have an AEW Dynamite in the can here tonight, and we have baby faces finally reigning supreme over the Death Riders and John Moxley, Orange Cassidy, Adam Page, and who am I missing here? What a
Jay
start to the
White,
show.
Orange
Jay White
Cassidy, and
sta
Hangman Adam
sta
Page.
standing tall at the end of the Jay White Pac match, uh, beating the Death Riders and standing tall. This was necessary, Joel. We've seen heel
Mhm.
beatdown after heel beatdown over and over again from AEW here, and now the baby faces get a chance to shine. Uh, First of all, talk about your impression of how that segment played out with the baby faces standing tall and what you think of this. I mean, this is an interesting mix of guys here, right? Jay White, Hangman Page, and Orange Cassidy. You could see at the end that they were kind of giving each other the side eye. There was not a lot of trust there among those three. But what do you make of those three being the choices to kind of lead the charge for Team AEW?
Yeah, it certainly seems like that this is the rumored four-way that we're getting at World's End, where we weren't sure if it was going to be Christian Cage involved in this, adding another heel, or now it certainly seems like Orange Cassidy, who just faced off against John Moxley, is going to be the fourth member in that. I thought the segment actually came off pretty well. Just overall tonight, it seemed like we either had a more lively crowd, or they were mic'd a lot better. So just having a lot more energy in the building enhanced everything throughout the show. But I thought that this worked out well. That people were ready to see the Death Riders get their comeuppance. It was about damn time that something happened here. And I thought that it played off well. I think that it's a match that people are looking forward to, although it is the multi-person championship match, which always, takes away some of the prestige of, I think a lot of people prefer to see the one-on-one. But as you're looking at who are the top challengers at this point, nobody really stood out as just a great single opponent. So by having these three in here, there is some sense that you can make of that. Although you just had Jay White versus Hangman Page, and it kind of seemingly is that the crowd has been continuing to get behind Hangman Adam Page, and it seems like he's almost playing like the babyface role in this as well, along with the other guys going against John Moxley.
Speaking of Hangman Page, he's done some pretty dastardly things as of late as a heel. What do
Absolutely.
you it doesn't feel like this is like a 100% babyface turn. He's not coming out smacking hands and things like that. But what do you make of the decision now to seemingly make Hangman Page a babyface after a lot of the really nasty stuff he's done as a heel?
I mean, it's kind of par for the course for AEW in a lot of ways, where it just seems like for the convenience of the match that they may just move somebody into another position. And the crowd was already getting behind Hangman Page because they were just so into the character that he's been doing, although it's been some dastardly things, as you said, as burning down Swerve Strickland's childhood house. Yeah, in that feud, that wasn't all that long ago. So it is definitely a stark change for him. But like you mentioned, I don't think it's a full on babyface turn. It's for the convenience of having this 4-way match, and the crowd's buying it because they really enjoy this Hangman character that he's doing.
You mentioned the four-way match. I know that's kind of been discussed around the periphery of this. Is that where you see this headed? Do you see it breaking down into singles matches, either Page against Moxley, Jay White against Moxley, maybe an Orange Cassidy rematch against Moxley, or are you pretty set that it's a four-way?
I'm pretty set that it's going to be a 4-way, just based on the angle that we had tonight, and then them immediately talking about what does this mean for World's End with everybody involved, and then we get the World's End promo there. So it definitely felt like that was kind of a wink and the nod of that's a preview of the main event that you're going to get for that show.
Christian Cage is still hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the contract. He came out and made an appearance at the end of that segment, still lurking in the background of this. How do you see that playing out and playing into this storyline, if at all? Or is this just kind of like its own thing here with Christian?
I think he's always going to be lurking in the background of the world title picture, especially what we saw at the end of the Full Gear show, where he's going to be constantly teasing. And certainly, it seems like he's setting himself up that, hey, all these guys are going to kind of beat each other up. They're going to beat up Jon Moxley, and maybe this is going to be an opportunity for me to come in there at the end. And it remains to be seen if he'll actually do that, because he's got some business to be taken care of with Hook. They were definitely emphasizing after the concerto on his hand that, is this a broken hand for Hook? And AEW has this history of sometimes it means something, sometimes they're back wrestling the next week. So we're unsure of what the actual damage to Hook's hand that's going to be. But I think that he's going to be tied up mostly in that, with just, the tease in the background of what's he going to do. But certainly it just doesn't feel like, Jon Moxley as champion this is the right moment for him to try and pin him for that. And I certainly don't see a scenario where somebody else pins Jon Moxley and then you have and then you have Christian Cage pinning them to win the world title. I think we're in for a long ride of Moxley holding on to that championship. So it's unclear as to when Christian will actually cash that in and if he'll be successful or not. But I think that they're going to keep that thing kind of in the background. I think they like that sort of money in the bank type of tease of, you never know when he's going to come out there and try and cash that thing in.
Is there a singles match among any of these baby faces, whether it's maybe an Orange Cassidy rematch or Hangman Page or Jay White? Is there any one of those that intrigues you more than the others in terms of a potential singles match, maybe not at World's End, but down the line against Jon Moxley for the title?
I think certainly, Orange Cassidy, I think it's been played out with how many times they've gone against each other. And we just had that at the main event, the pay-per-view. I just don't see that one as being something that they're going to want to go back to in the near future, outside of the 4-man match. But, Jay White is also getting himself over as a babyface here. But Hangman Page, if he continues in the direction of going in as a babyface, I could see people clamoring for that match of him being this outlaw guy to try and take out Jon Moxley. That I certainly think that there's a story that can be told there leading to a bigger match down the road. Whether Hangman Page is successful in that or not, again, I think that that this story with Moxley is going to be drawn out for potentially well into next year. Could be All In, could be that moment that you see the title being taken off of him. But if they continue in this direction with Hangman Page and also with Jay White, certainly I think that there are singles matches that you could get out of them, provided that they look good in this presumed 4-way match for World's End.
A lot of comments coming in on the YouTube page here. Zach saying Hangman beginning a road back to sanity wouldn't be a bad thing. That's a possibility, although Hangman as insane is a lot more interesting than Hangman as sane.
Yeah.
Derek says it's about time the Death Riders move past dealing with the job squad performers and interact with a high caliber of competition. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And Andrew chiming in, I wouldn't mind a hot potato title switch scenario. Might be interesting for a few months. So any of those comments you want to expand upon, Joel, before we officially do our introductions here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Derek there that it is about time that the Death Riders move past a lot of the lower card baby faces. I think that that's what really kind of hurt them out of the gate, as the scene of all the baby faces standing outside, and certainly they've morphed the storyline in the way that they're integrating the Death Riders on a week-to-week in Dynamite. That I think that the Jon Moxley seizes the TBS station got a lot of flack from fans and people online, that I think they want to move away from that direction of this total takeover to where this is a more typical heel world champion, where they're holding that title hostage inside of that briefcase that Marina Shafir is carrying around. I don't know about so much of a hot potato title switch there. I think people definitely want to see a title change, but I think that you want to wait for that right moment for that big baby face to conquer Jon Moxley, because they're building this up into such a big thing that you're going to want that to be on a big show with somebody that you're going to go with for a while.
All right, well, let's reset things here as we are now into the AEW Dynamite talking points here. I am Pro Wrestling Torch columnist Greg Parks, and this is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for AEW Dynamite on December 4th, 2024, here on the PWTorch YouTube page and wherever you get your Torch podcasts. And joining me here tonight is longtime PWTorch.com contributor Joel Dehnel, who, as his Chiron notes, is the host of the All Elite Conversation Club. So it's good to have an AEW expert here talking Dynamite with me tonight. Joel, good to be on with you again. I know since Wrestling Night in America ended as a weekly show and my hosting duties ended, I know that there's a lot of people who I always enjoyed talking to on that show that I kind of missed out talking to. So you're one of them, and I'm glad I get to reconnect with you here tonight talking Dynamite.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual, Greg. I was very excited at the opportunity to do this show with you, to talk exclusively about some AEW stuff.
So just a couple housekeeping notes to start. You can check out my detailed report of AEW Dynamite. I also filled in for Wade, as I'm doing here on audio. I filled in for him. He is on assignment tonight on PWTorch.com, the written report that you can read. You can read my thoughts on the segments as they aired, as well as listening to us discuss it here. You can always be part of the show. Type your questions into the chat and we'll discuss them if you are listening and watching us live. Also, you can subscribe on your podcast app to this post show and our regular flagship podcast. Search Wade Keller on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other podcast app. Don't forget to please like the show, comment below, subscribe to our channel, and look at that. He even puts a thank you there. He's so polite. That's that Midwestern nice, right, Joel? Having the
Absolutely,
thank
yeah.
you. You know a little bit about that, but Dynamite tonight. I mean, I thought it was a good show, and I don't want to give too much credit to the Continental Classic. I know that was something that steered Dynamite and AEW TV in the right direction last year. It's something that it gave AEW a sharp focus for their shows, and the shows on a whole tended to improve. Now we're starting to see that again. Really good show tonight, very focused show, pretty tight show, all things considered. Do you expect the Continental Classic to sort of right the ship for AEW? I know the television has been inconsistent. Some people have loved it. Some people have really had a problem with the TV, even as they're giving out high compliments to AEW's pay-per-views. But do you see this Continental Classic tournament again sort of righting the ship as it comes to consistent television that AEW is putting on?
At least for right now, I mean, it definitely gives a lot more discipline to the booking and the promoting by having some quality matches that you can announce for the future. I mean, they announced so many more matches coming up here throughout the night, and I can't get it straight as to which show these things are going on, because they have a number of things that they're promoting, including the show at the Hammerstein Ballroom. They have a ROH pay-per-view. They have the pay-per-view that's in Orlando. They have Winter is Coming next week. They have the Holiday Bash the week after that. So it's able to.
I gave up at one point just trying to, when Excalibur was running down the card at various points, I just kind of gave up trying to keep track of what matches. And
yeah,
it's hard when I was doing my report. It's hard to give the blow by blow while also trying to intersperse the matches that they're talking about coming up, because some of them were pretty big, and I kind of felt bad about missing out on those. But it's just a lot coming at you at once.
Yeah, there's a lot of meaningful matches coming up here. And certainly right at the close of the show, they announced some pretty big matches again for Winter is Coming for next week. So I'm enjoying the fact that we're getting to know some of the things that are coming up for these shows. December seems like it's going to be a fun month of AEW content. As far as the quality of matches, there is some importance to it with the Continental Classic. So I don't know what that's going to mean for the future after we get past World's End, if it's going to continue to have this consistency of more disciplined booking, of having some importance of things. But certainly tonight was a step in the right direction. As I mentioned, having a much more lively crowd, well mic'd, added a lot more excitement to what things are going on. I certainly didn't peg Fishers, Indiana as being a hot crowd for AEW, but they certainly brought it tonight. And I think that a lot of that has to do with just, having this tournament where each of these matches means something, and it's leading into the next week.
Well, let's go blow by blow through the show here, and of course, if anyone wants to jump in with any comments on what we're talking about, we'll kind of piggyback off of those as well. But the show started with a video recap of the first week of the Continental Classic, some comments from those who are competing in the tournament tonight. I mean, it was a simple thing, but one of the things I really noticed, Joel, about this show is that they did a good job with brief video recaps of some of the matches on this show.
Yeah.
The situation with Anna Jay and Penelope Ford that dated back 2 or 3 years. The match with Pac and with Jay White, and just kind of the history between those two. It wasn't a long video package. It's not even like 2 minutes, but it was something to tell you this is why this match is happening and this is why this match is important. And I hope that's something they did it again with the Continental Classic here, opening the show with this and just having a few comments from the participants. I thought really made a big difference in setting the stage for some of these matches.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, even Tony Khan was mentioning that on Twitter, giving props to the production team for a lot of the video packages, and I think that was very well deserved because for the audiences who can't keep up with every single thing that's going on and remember all these different long-term stories, it's a great quick reminder without always relying on the commentary team to fill in the gaps on that stuff. And so I'm glad that they've made the decision that it is worth their television time to tell those stories and give it some more meaning, and especially for a match like Anna Jay versus Penelope Ford, where a lot of people, including myself, would not have remembered the whole story and everything that they had done in the year before. And then also talking about how Anna Jay has been on a roll, and she spent some time over in Japan improving. So it just gives a little more oomph to all the matches, as well as having that video package talking about the Continental Classic, and then giving you the recap as to the things that happened on Collision, because Collision does have a much smaller audience than Dynamite does. So you want to keep people invested in those other matches that are happening, and hopefully, by filling people in on some of that stuff, that it will get a little bit more viewers over to Collision to continue to invest into the tournament.
So the first match of the show was a Continental Classic Blue League match that pitted Shelton Benjamin against Kyle Fletcher. Just a reminder, no managers, no seconds, no riffraff at ringside for these. So Don Callis was relegated to the commentary table. MVP had to go to the back. And this was an interesting match to me. Fletcher gets the win in 15 minutes using the rope for leverage. Two of the Continental Classic matches using chicanery to win. Didn't love that. But Fletcher and Benjamin kind of started as a feeling out process. And I think sometimes we forget Shelton Benjamin is almost 50 years old. So to expect the Shelton Benjamin of 20 years ago would not be fair. But I was surprised that the way it started, and I wrote it in my report that it was almost like a house show match where they were starting really slow. They were working hard to get the crowd involved, and to their credit, the crowd did get involved in it. And then, the last 5 to 7 minutes I thought was a really strong match. But I thought it was smart the way they worked. I didn't think it took away in a great deal from the match itself. I just thought it was kind of interesting how it was laid out. What did you make of that? And then Kyle Fletcher getting the win the way he did, using the ropes for leverage.
Yeah, certainly it gave a lot more to their personalities in here. Shelton Benjamin has looked really good in his AEW run thus far. Yeah, it's crazy to think about, Greg, that you mentioned that he's close to 50 years old. You just wouldn't think that watching him work a lot of the way he does. But Fletcher is a character right now that they're really trying to get over specifically that personality. And so he had some of that engagement in the crowd. You heard the crowd chanting Ospreay's better, and Don Callis, saying that can't be the truth because he's already beaten Will Ospreay at the Full Gear pay-per-view. So overall, I mean, none of these Continental Classic matches have blown me away thus far, but I don't think that they need to either. That I'd like to see that this tournament builds a bit, because we've seen good enough action to keep you invested in this. And then I kind of felt as they were announcing other matches, it's like, whoa, now the stakes seem to be amplifying a little bit, especially with the announcement of Claudio versus Will Ospreay for next week. And we saw Claudio having a good showing in the main event here. So I don't think that every match has to be a 4-star plus match. I think that they effectively got over the story, especially with MVP being very upset with Shelton Benjamin losing this match afterwards. And they beat up the production crew that was behind them. But you want to see Kyle Fletcher go on a run, and you're going to see more cheating throughout this tournament because of not being able to have the outside interference, part of the stipulation of not having anybody at ringside there. So I think that just kind of comes with the territory, the way that they're booking this of not having other people there. So I like that because Kyle was showing enough here, but still maintaining being a heel by doing these little tricks of holding on to the ropes for the win.
When a heel cheats to win in the manner that Fletcher did, it's sometimes hard to read into it. Is it AEW wanting to protect Shelton Benjamin, or is it AEW just wanting to make sure fans understand that Kyle Fletcher is a really dastardly heel and he'll cheat to win and he doesn't care? So, did you read into it one way or the other there?
In that particular match, I think it was both. I think that they're really trying to protect Shelton Benjamin as somebody who's valuable in the mid card. Keeping the Hurt Syndicate strong because they still do feel like stars who have come into this promotion. So you want to present him in a much better light than you did. Or than WWE did in his final run there. So you definitely want to protect him a little bit, but as well as with Kyle Fletcher. I mean, we've seen with the AEW crowd is that when you start seeing some good performances, whether they are acting like a heel, that the crowd will start siding with them after a while if they keep giving these great performances. And so I think just by doing that little trick in there, it helps to maintain his heel status throughout this tournament. I still want to see him look strong and, over some of these lesser opponents within his bracket, getting some just definitive wins there. I don't think that cheating is necessary every time, but certainly with Shelton Benjamin, someone who is much more fresh coming into the promotion, I can see that they're trying to do both things there.
There's a couple things from the chat here. Derek says, one of the many things that I dislike about AEW, there are too many match announcements and do not let things digest. I mean, it's hard to argue that. I guess when you throw a dozen matches at people, at some point their eyes just kind of glaze over. And
yeah,
I think if you focused on 2 or 3 of your strongest matches that you think are really going to draw people, then maybe really put an emphasis on that. You don't necessarily have to advertise everything. And you don't have to advertise everything 2-3 weeks out because they're trying to advertise. They've got Rampage coming up. They've got Collision coming up. They've got World's End coming up at the end of the month. They've got next week's Dynamite coming up. So it's a lot. And by the end of it, I can't remember who was fighting who on what show. So
yeah.
scale it back a little bit. Just tell me what's coming up the rest of this week and tell me the 1 or 2 big matches. That's it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think you could scale back some of the more kind of mid-card stuff that's not going to be as important, but certainly Winter is Coming has been one of their branded Dynamite shows, so they want to make it into a bigger deal for next week. So if you want to add more for that, that's fine. But as you mentioned too, I mean, you have Okada wrestling on Rampage, so just by having his presence on there, it's one of the biggest rampages that they've had in a long time. But there's just so much stuff to remember at this point. So it is the proverbial double-edged sword for me, where I do like the fact that there is a lot more excitement around some of the matches and bigger things that seem more important coming up on these shows. But just like you, I had a tough time remembering what's coming up on all these shows, because it was just all over the place throughout the whole episode. Is that it's like, this is happening here, and then we're adding this to this one, then a couple weeks from now we're going to have this match on here. So they're just trying to really load up this end of the year, especially since they're going into the new year, where they're at least for the first episode of Dynamite, they're going to have that simulcast on Max. So they're loading up as much as they can at this point. But maybe scaling it a little bit of it back. But again, I do like the fact that I know quite a few important matches that are coming up here.
And Mark says we need Sean Mooney in the event center, and I mean, maybe not to that
or Chris
extent,
Jericho.
but yeah, no thanks. But that's kind of a good point, because I think you can do it in a way that, when I say do it, I mean advertise these matches ahead of time. but in a way that's not just yelling them at you all at once. You
Mhm.
know, the way that Excalibur does. I think if you did an event center type thing, and you've got Tony Schiavone there who would be great in that kind of environment, and you said, here's what we got coming up. We've got this match. Let's hear a promo from this guy. Let it breathe for a second. We've got this match coming up. Here's how this came about. We've got, so if you took, maybe not 5 minutes, maybe that's asking too much, but if you took 2 to 3 minutes and did an event center style promotion of these matches, I think they'd land better, and I think people would remember them better.
Yeah, I think if you just had a much more thoughtful way of how you're announcing these matches throughout the show, whereas it very much was scattered throughout the show, just kind of adding different pieces here and there to get to just get everything out there on this, because now it certainly seems they're moving in a direction, at least for this week, of announcing more stuff on television show where they have a much larger audience than stuff being put on X through Tony Khan or AEW's Twitter feed. So yeah, if you had something, that was much more like an event center, this week we had Chris Jericho, playing up his character, talking more about like some of the ticket sales of the ROH thing, trying to plug watch ROH, which again is just more content plugging for people to watch. So it gets to be just this overload of things that they're plugging. And then also he's talking about the tickets for All In that the pre-sale went on earlier this week, with the regular on sale happening next week. So, I think that there is room for them to have a more thought out approach to trying to keep it in more of a linear fashion than just kind of all over the place of announcing the matches.
Well, we're about 30 minutes into our recap here, Joel, so I'll take a moment to once again introduce ourselves. PWTorch columnist Greg Parks here, along with PWTorch.com contributor Joel Dehnel. I'm filling in for PWTorch editor Wade Keller here on the AEW Dynamite post show. He is on assignment tonight, so I am filling in here not only on audio/video, but also on the written side, PWTorch.com. My full written report of Dynamite and the results can be found there. And don't forget to join us in the chat if you're watching us live. So you can, here I am fumbling over trying to find, see, this is what happens when I take a few weeks off and they call me in. I have to go through and I have to, okay, where is my banner? All right, here it is. Be part of the show. Type your questions into the chat. We'll discuss them live. I believe my understanding is Wade is actually monitoring the emails too. And if we get emails, he's going to forward them to me. So if you want to email Wade Keller podcast at gmail.com, I believe we may get some tonight if there are any. So that is also a possibility. Again, if you're watching it live, if you're listening to this on your podcast feed Thursday morning on your way to work, probably not as relevant, but who knows? Maybe for next time you'll join us live. Have a good time here, taking the comments and everything like that. So let's go back to Dynamite here. Hook and his situation challenged Nick Wayne. Christian came out and, Hook was attacked by Kip Sabian, Nick Wayne. Hook ended up putting Wayne in Red Room, caught Christian trying to get involved. The numbers game was too much, and they hit a concerto to the wrist of Hook. And so, my first impression wasn't a fan. Another heel beatdown, yawn type of thing here. And I think it's also just disappointing because as hot as Christian Cage was as an act at one time, it seems like he has really cooled off, and he's just kind of, blending into the scenery because there's tons of heel factions now. I mean, the top feud, the top storyline is a heel faction taking over the company. And all of a sudden, Christian's heel faction looks a lot lesser than by comparison. So I think that's part of it. But what did you think of this segment and where they're going with eventually Hook versus Christian Cage here?
Yeah, you're not wrong that there is a lot of heel factions out there, and Christian, what he's been doing feels a bit redundant. It's kind of feels like been there, done that. Obviously, they have the new, the new part of it with having Kip Sabian in there while Kill Switch has been out. So I would assume when Kill Switch is ready to come back. That, you know, maybe we'll finally get the kill switch turned on Christian Cage, and who knows if it'll be as big as maybe AEW had thought it would be at one point. You know, as far as the stuff with Hook, I don't mind it. I think at this point I'm waiting to see if Samoa Joe is kind of the guy to back up to back up Hook at some point, because they had a really great dynamic with one another. The backstage stuff that they were doing before Samoa Joe left to film the Twisted Metal show, and it sounds like that has been wrapped up and that he would be able to return at some point. So maybe you can get a tag match out of that, which I would be in favor of. If those two can band back together, I think that would add a little bit more spice to what's been going on between Hook and the patriarchy. It was a bit unclear there. I think that or Hook mentioned that Nick Wayne had set out a challenge for Hook, and then Hook was saying that he wanted Christian Cage instead for the Hammerstein Ballroom show. So again, another match that they're trying to lead up to a few weeks from now. So it's unclear if we're going to get Hook versus Nick Wayne before then, or if now Hook is going to be out for a little bit because of his hand. The commentary team was really trying to sell that, but as I said at the top of the show, it's a mixed bag whether or not they're going to sell that for the long term or not. If they're going to be wrestling next week, we don't really know, and we're gonna have to find out about that. But yeah, I think that this was fine. You know, as a segment itself, I'm just waiting to see where this goes, and I am hoping that this means the reuniting of Hook and Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. So certainly it looks like Hook needs a friend. There were no baby faces that came out to save him from the attack by Christian's group. So you would imagine that would potentially be an avenue for Samoa Joe's return there as well. So we'll see. Renee Paquette approaching Mercedes Moné backstage. Wanted to talk about Camille. Mercedes doesn't want to talk about Camille and doesn't even want to hear the name. She's done with Camille, so turning her attention to Anna Jay and watching her match with Penelope Ford closely tonight. They advertised that the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal would be next, and this is where you mentioned earlier MVP chewing out Shelton Benjamin backstage for his loss. Lashley stood by quietly, and then Benjamin took out his frustrations on a stagehand walking by, and then MVP and Lashley also got involved as well. So Benjamin kind of getting his heat back a little bit for the loss there, which is fine, and you know, kind of shows what the group is all about. You know, they're about hurting people, which is in their name.
Yeah, in the song.
Yeah, and everything like that. So I thought it was pretty effective for what it was. You know, short to the point, and it worked well.
Yeah, I thought to go over some of those segments there. Yeah, I thought that was fine for the Hurt Syndicate. The MVP is ripping into Shelton Benjamin. I'm curious to see what's next for Bobby Lashley. You heard from Swerve Strickland later as he talked into the camera that his business with Lashley isn't over. So they could be leading back to a rematch between those two. We did see a little bit of Mercedes here, and then she came back out later. I think that Mercedes finally having a really good match in AEW against Chris Statlander has helped to give her a little bit more shine. So it polished her off a little bit. And then having that separation from Camille, I think is a good thing. I'm unsure if it's going to lead to a Mercedes versus Camille. You know, certainly her being asked about Camille leads. I mean,
it almost has to. Right?
Yeah,
I don't think you can just end it and then have Camille go off and be.
I'd be fine with
her own thing. Yeah, really.
I would be fine with that. Yeah, I think that Camille has been very unimpressive in AEW, and I think that there wasn't really any chemistry between her and Mercedes. That if you did just walk away with it, which I am in favor of, if it's just not working for Mercedes, just to move on from that.
Would that hurt Camille's credibility at all going forward? You know, she gets basically kicked to the curb by Mercedes and doesn't even seek revenge, doesn't even seek any follow-up on that.
Yes.
And it goes off and doesn't.
Yeah.
But you don't care.
Absolutely. But yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you want to try and keep her strong as a character, sure, you want to have her have that match. But I think that
it doesn't feel like AEW has any interest in that.
Well, the fact that they brought it up here, certainly is keeping it in fans' minds of the possibility of Camille and Mercedes being so annoyed by it. Whereas if they had just moved on from it, then maybe they are moving away from it. But I would be in favor of them just going in another direction, her just having a match against Anna Jay. But I think they were going to keep that one in their back pocket for Camille to eventually screw Mercedes in a match that leads to a title match between the two, which
I'm
I don't know. We'll
assuming
see if that
I'm
has
assuming
chemistry.
it happens in the Anna Jay match or right after.
Yeah,
That's my assumption.
Yeah, I think it's gonna happen. It's just I'd be fine if they just moved on from it.
Yeah, fair enough. Speaking of moving on, we'll move on to the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. This it's so strange how they do this. I mean, they're fighting over, in theory, something prestigious, this Dynamite Diamond Ring, and a match against MJF on pay-per-view at World's End.
Mhm.
The two finalists wrestle, and then so conceivably you're fighting for a pay-per-view match on AEW pay-per-view. And yet this collection of wrestlers in this match, I didn't really make any sense to me. Like, how did they all earn this opportunity? What
You
has
didn't think
what's
the
the
Butcher had a chance, Greg? Come on
well,
now.
not so much that, but it's just the randomness
Yeah,
of it
yeah, yeah.
all and how it just felt like these names were picked out of a hat backstage. Like that's what I couldn't get over. Like, I mean, I don't mind doing a battle royal for this opportunity. I don't mind doing the yearly Dynamite Diamond Ring thing. That's fine. And I'm not even saying we need qualifying matches in the weeks leading up
Well,
to
yeah,
get into
yeah.
this match. I'm not saying that either, but give me some semblance of reasoning for why these wrestlers did they are they on a winning streak, are they all pushed at about the same level? I mean, obviously Adam Cole is top flight as a tag team is in here. I mean, how did a tag team earn a shot? And it's just, it felt so random, it was hard to really get into it from that perspective.
Well, there was just nobody else who had any sort of semblance of credibility that they could possibly win this match. And so it did just feel like whoever was backstage, at the time for the Rampage taping, they said, we don't have anything for you on Rampage because we're going to have some of these Continental Classic matches. So since you came into Fishers, Indiana, we'll put you into this Battle Royal. I mean, was there any sort of did anybody think it wouldn't be coming down to Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly? And my other question is, Greg, is has this always been a part of this battle royal for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, that it is the last two who then will go against each other to then face MJF? I feel like I did not hear that as the stipulation before tonight, that they talked about it before the match. I mean, somebody in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't remember that, where I was just very surprised when it was both O'Reilly and Cole as the last people, and then they rang the bell. So Ramen Noodle is saying yes, that I'm assuming that yes, as in they did explain that was going to be the last two there. But to me, I was very surprised. It just felt like they've been changing a lot of the rules on that. But I mean, yeah, it's kind of, can we just get to seeing this MJF versus Adam Cole thing? But he's going to have to continue. Yes, as Zach Barber says, can we just get that match already? But Adam Cole has to continue to go through other matches. I guess work off some more ring rust before he can have his big match against MJF.
Niners fan in the chat said the battle royal was a waste of time. Could have just went to Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. Derek says this was the most lethargic, uninspired battle royal I've seen in a long time. Kyle O'Reilly's punching and kicking looked so weak. Yeah, I mean, the thing with it got to the end of the match, and there was like 6 people left, and Adam Cole was like in the corner, and I'm like, he hasn't done anything all match. Like they would pair off, and they would have focus on different wrestlers throughout, and Cole, aside from the beginning with Evil Uno, was never really one focused on, and it's just kind of strange that way. But anyway, Cole and O'Reilly do shockingly end up as the co-winners, which means that they will face off next week. The winner will face MJF. So, I mean, hilarious if Kyle O'Reilly wins and faces MJF at the pay-per-view after Roderick Strong took
You
Adam
never
Cole's
know.
last opportunity. I mean, like, the way this storyline is going, it would not surprise me if that happened. And they like kept these roadblocks kept getting put up in Adam Cole's way, and he gets angrier and angry because he can't get these opportunities to face MJF, and MJF doesn't want to face him, obviously. So just that would be just wild. But O'Reilly and Cole after the match kind of exchanged words. O'Reilly bumped past Cole, so there's trouble in paradise there, as there has been. I mean, this was not my favorite part of this show, and part of it, I think, is just that the Cole MJF feud is circling the drain as we speak. And anytime they try to do something to freshen up, it's just like thumbs down. So this wasn't, I mean, the battle royal had its moments, but I wasn't a fan of like how many teased eliminations or eliminations there were with guys like fighting on the apron. I thought they kind of overdid that spot a little bit. But I guess that's kind of a minor complaint in the grand scheme of things. What did you think about the match and us getting Cole and O'Reilly coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unmemorable battle royal, to say the least, of just, a means to an end of trying to get that Kyle O'Reilly Adam Cole match, as Kyle O'Reilly has been having a lot of friction with Adam Cole lately about their friendship with Roderick Strong. I mean, wouldn't it be something if they had if again they're teasing that Adam Cole's going to face MJF at the pay-per-view, but instead you get Kyle O'Reilly to go against MJF, and then MJF has like some serious injury, and now we have to delay the Adam Cole MJF match yet again. I am not wishing any bad luck for that to happen, but certainly I think people just want to see it happen at this point. But I think that there's certainly a chance after what they did by having Roderick Strong going up against MJF, that I feel like they're trying to really stretch this out by not having MJF in the buildings there, that he's still been doing these pre-tape promos, which I thought this week's one was a little bit better. Granted, they're still odd from the locations that they're taking place. He was at some high-end bar at this for this week, and he's saying that Adam Cole kind of teasing him that there's a chance you could beat Kyle O'Reilly, but does MJF make another call to Kashida or something to try and screw over Adam Cole? I think
that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, if Cole does beat O'Reilly fair and square, goes on to face MJF at World's End, what was the point of Roddy Strong winning the last time and getting to face MJF? And I don't really understand if that's not a progression or part of the storyline that kind of snowballs for Adam Cole. What was the point of that roadblock then? If he was just going to go, oh, okay, I'll just win and get my chance this way. Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
No, and it didn't make a lot of sense at the time of just having this whole thing with Roderick Strong getting back involved. I mean, certainly the fans were groaning at the fact that that Adam Cole is realigning himself with the Undisputed Kingdom, and they're throwing the wrench of his whole friendship thing again with them. Yeah. Where I think people would just like to see Adam Cole just move on, because it certainly has hurt his star power being aligned with these guys who have been largely booked as just kind of mid to lower mid card wrestlers throughout their AEW tenure. So it seemed like they had shifted plans, certainly for Full Gear. I don't know that for certain, but the way it was played out on television, it seemed like they wanted to go in the direction of Adam Cole versus MJF, and maybe they just kind of got this idea of, hey, let's make the fans really want it by continuing to stretch it out, and maybe they want MJF to be more available for when they are ready to do that. Because he was filming the Happy Gilmore movie before. I don't know if he's still doing that, and that's why he's not on television, or if this is just now kind of become the plan of, let's keep him away, just still having him do some of these promos while Adam Cole is trying to prove himself by winning some matches to finally get his chance against MJF. I don't think it's a complete shoo-in that we're gonna get Adam Cole versus MJF at World's End. I think that's a possibility, but they've kept me intrigued at the possibility that they may delay it even further because they already did it once. And I could see them certainly trying to do that again.
How wild would that be? Oh man. That would be, but again, par for the course for this storyline. I think that would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
all fitting, very fitting. Julia Hart video aired focusing on Jamie Hayter. Hayter responded later on in the show. The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn were backstage. Renee Paquette tried to get a word with the trio. They were not happy with Max Caster. Max was trying to psych himself up for his match with Swerve Strickland, and Bowens gave him what Caster took as support, but I don't think it was really meant that way. He went to the ring to face Swerve Strickland in the third match of the show. Caster did his rap. He got attacked by Swerve before the match, and Strickland put him away in a shade over 2 minutes. So, arguably the best thing on the show here, I think.
I would argue that. Yeah.
I loved Swerve's. He's a guy, I know people were down on his loss at Full Gear, thought he shouldn't have taken that loss, bemoaned his position on the card vis-a-vis where he was as champion. I think this does help him getting, showing this aggressive side both in the ring and just the way he carried himself. I think was an important step in the right direction for Swerve as he kind of recovers from that loss to Lashley. He addressed Lashley to the camera before he left. He gave an extra beating to Max Caster after the match, giving him the Swerve stomp. So I think that was good. And I think it was a necessary loss for Max to kind of push him further into the direction of being a part of the Hurt Syndicate, which I think would be great for him. I think it would be much needed for him. And so I'm hoping that this is kind of another step toward that. But I thought this was well done. AEW does not do matches like this very often, where they basically squash a name wrestler, even though that's kind of part of the story they're telling here with Caster and getting too big for his britches, as the saying goes. But what did you think of the whole shebang here with Swerve and Max Caster?
Yeah, I really liked it, and I even commented that this was some of my favorite or the best AEW booking that I've seen in a while, because you just don't see that very often. Where Swerve just needed to look really good, and people have complained about some of these matches of where people want to see the bigger name wrestler put the lesser name person away much faster, and this was a great example of that, where Swerve needed to get his swag back, and Max Caster is getting too big for, is over conflating or inflating his self ego by saying that he's the best wrestler in the world. Everybody knows how ridiculous that is, that he could make that claim, because he's Max Caster. He's lame, his raps are lame, and myself included have wanted to see the Acclaimed go in another direction, including even splitting off from each other, and just seeing Anthony Bowens maybe doing something on his own, and maybe Max Caster, taking some time off for a little bit. So I really liked seeing Swerve just come out here and just taking this guy out. And, Max didn't really show much in this match because, Swerve just dominated him and then just took him out even more afterwards. The only thing I just get nervous about is certainly what it seems that the story they're telling with Billy Gunn, again, acutely pointing out that, MVP has gotten in his head and helped to, get him this false sense of his value and who he is as a wrestler, that I just don't see Max Caster. I mean, certainly it helps Max Caster to give him a fresh coat of paint to be aligned with the Hurt Syndicate, but I don't think that helps the Hurt Syndicate at all by having somebody who has been as lame as Max Caster has been. I think that you can change his character being involved with them, but I just think that his involvement brings it down a bit, whereas these guys have come in and felt like stars. That I think having Max Caster involved just takes away some of that prestige. I think that with MVP handing out a lot of business cards to people, eventually they're going to have to add somebody. And certainly the booking and the way that they've told this story would lead you to think that Max Caster is going to be involved with them. And he's been getting some good heat lately. I think that the crowd is definitely at the point where they're tired of some of his raps, and they've been encouraged to boo him with the character that he's playing, and just kind of the direction that the Acclaimed has been going lately. But I just don't think that it helps the Hurt Syndicate when you have this group that is feeling very fresh right now.
Yeah, I think there's one of two ways they could go if Max does join the Hurt Syndicate. One, he tries to join with this act and like they kind of treat him almost as a pledge where he has to like earn his stripes as part of the Hurt Syndicate, and they try to kind of strip away everything that made him part of the Acclaimed and try to kind of repackage him themselves. Or he joins the Hurt Syndicate, kind of this already made new character. And
Mhm.
yes, the Hurt Syndicate feels fresh. And I think adding a different Max Caster, a different character Max Caster would help it stay fresh. And I think it would freshen up Max Caster too as well.
Yeah, I mean, if there is a well thought out, different course of a character that you go with for Max Caster, but yeah, until I see it, I'm probably just more feeling that I think it does more damage to Hurt Syndicate. How much
Mhm.
damage does it really do? I don't know. Until it plays out, I just feel that Max Caster is a character right now that could use some help just by going away for a little bit and then maybe coming back as something a little bit different. And maybe Hurt Syndicate does that for him. But as this current incarnation of Max Caster, I just don't think that helps Hurt Syndicate, where I think you want to continue to keep building them up, especially with Lashley getting that win over Swerve.
Ramen Noodle says, I actually like this delusional Max Caster. It's mid card, but I like it. Standard Deviation says, I love this version of Platinum Max. So uh, it's popular. it's a it's a
Sure.
popular turn for Max Caster and a necessary one.
Yeah.
We had the MJF promo at a undisclosed location, notably clean shaven. Looked like he's letting his hair grow out a little bit. Reacted to O'Reilly and Cole winning the Battle Royal. Talked about how Cole's turning on him set off this chain of events that even he connected it to Jon Moxley's title reign and trying to tear down AEW. And then there was this quote that I thought was potentially important, so much so that I noted it specifically in my report. I'm sick of you walking around pretending you're the hero when really you're the villain.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's kind of a breadcrumb for something later on, or if that's just kind of delusional heel MJF trying to rationalize his own behavior. But what did you make of the promo?
I mean, I hope that it's Max just trying to rationalize his own behavior, because certainly it's kind of a callback where he talked about the better than you, baby, and he was saying things were a lot better than, certainly I think Max is in tune with how that storyline has been perceived by AEW fans, by critics like us. That was certainly, we felt that was a down period and did not help Max or Adam Cole or the promotion as a whole. During that time, that I think that would be a really bad move for that to be a red herring of Adam Cole turning back into a heel and then MJF becoming the baby face. That would be strongly the wrong direction at this point. That Adam Cole has been getting some negative reaction from people, but I just don't think with the way that they told this story, if they're trying to get something out of it, that it's just not the right move for them to flip roles yet again during this whole thing. That I think you need to stay consistent here with MJF being the heel until these guys are done with this feud.
And yet, this whole feud has been so wonky, we can't really rule anything out,
Yeah.
can we, Joel?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Greg. That's why I'm saying like it could be Kyle O'Reilly against MJF. We just can't rule it out at this point because it's gone in so many different directions. There's so many times where it feels like maybe they were set on something and then they just going back to the All In where they had MJF versus Adam Cole, and they just continue that on because they liked the partnership, the friendship between those guys, the promos they were doing. That I feel that this is one of those stories where it has been taken in a lot of different directions. That maybe they have an idea of how they'd like for it to end, but the whole way it has seemed like they have just changed their mind throughout there, and it certainly translates that way on television.
The next match up we had at the top of the second hour of the show, Switchblade Jay White against Pac. This is one that had been plugged quite a bit throughout the week. Jay White getting the victory despite the interference from Wheeler Yuta throughout this match. White picking up the win in 13 minutes. This is where we had the post match, which we'll get to in just a moment. But for now, I just want to focus on the match, Joel. I thought it was a really strong match. I thought
Yeah.
the first part, if I want to get like technical about it, I thought the first part was hampered a bit by constantly going to the outside, because it felt like just as they were like building momentum, starting to get to a really good match, they would go to the outside. And it was like that kind of halted the momentum of the match quite a bit. And so once they, especially toward the end, once they stuck to the squared circle, then I thought the match got really good. And it almost felt to me like a preview of a match you might see on pay-per-view down the line between these two, because I think it would be even better than this. The Wheeler Yuta interference, I guess it comes with the territory, but I do think it kind of makes the ref look dumb when he's interfering 2-3 times a match and the ref isn't seeing it anytime. I mean, come on, he's right out there at ringside. But what did you think of the match, Jay White versus Pac here?
Yeah, I mean that's been par for the course with AEW as far as the referee stuff of, you know, not seeing how much Wheeler Yuta was getting involved in this, and Wheeler is constantly being disrespected by the rest of the Death Riders, and he's trying to prove his worth by getting involved and trying to help his members win, and in this case, you know, unsuccessfully doing so. You know, it's definitely seemed that way to me, that they were saving some stuff here for both these guys, because they, you know, the chemistry between them, you could see they were just had some really great sequences, but trying to break up some of that action by going to the outside. Then you also had the stuff with Wheeler Yuta, so it really never got going as one of those. Didn't go from really good to great, even though there were some great sequences there. And then the finish of the match, you know, where Jay White takes a knee from Wheeler Yuta, gets back into the ring, and then hits the switchblade for the win. I mean, it's definitely the right move that you're trying to stack the deck against Jay White, especially with the Death Riders, trying to do as much as they can, but still proving that he can overcome that, because he's going to probably be facing a lot of that stuff when I presume that he's going to be in the main event of a 4-way at World's End.
Derek in the chat pointing out Jay White has been rehabilitating his singles career from a year ago, his dreadful feud with MJF. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
I think we were all really anticipating, everybody who knew Jay White from New Japan, we're really anticipating him adding a lot to the top of the card in AEW. And the first several months, even the first year of his AEW tenure, felt like a big disappointment. And it does feel like the ship is being righted now, and they're more on the right track than they ever have been since Jay White has been in AEW with that character.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase that we've had on All Elite Conversation Club was "Free Jay White" for a long time, especially that debacle of a match that he had against Billy Gunn, whenever that one was. I try to pull that from my mind and forget that one even happened, because there's just so much value in Jay White, and for a while, it felt like, oh, did Jay White make the wrong decision by going to AEW instead of going to WWE? Because it certainly felt like he would have been treated a lot better, given this management in WWE, that they would have certainly seen the value in him from what he did in New Japan. And it just felt like it wasn't seen the same way because of the glut of so many guys that they are trying to push towards the top, when you have Jay White, who is just such a special talent there. And it was just underutilized for a long time. You know, trying to get their version of the Bullet Club on TV with the Guns and Juice Robinson. Unfortunately, Juice Robinson is out for a prolonged period of time with the foot injury, but I think that it's going to be good for Jay White to just be on his own for a little bit. It's, you know, again, like, the crowd appreciates good performances, whether people are being acting like heels or not. Jon Moxley has been one to overcome that right now, where he's done so much dastardly stuff in the ring, where it is leading to a lot more heel heat for him, and people wanting to see a babyface conquer him. So he's been doing a nice job there. But Jay White, you know, being a heel before, people just wanted to see him excel to a new level, so it got a lot of the crowd behind him. So it's still bizarre to me seeing him in this babyface role. I think he's doing well in that spot, but it still just feels weird casting for him, because so much of his career as the Switch, I mean, I think exclusively his career as the Switchblade character has been as a babyface. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But I think that he's done a good job to make him for for him to make AEW and the fans see the value that he has as being somebody pushed to the main event picture, as it seems that he is right now.
Standard deviation in the chat. Not pleased that you brought up that Billy Gunn memory. A lot of us have erased it from our.
I've tried to pluck that from my memory, but it's yeah, unfortunately it happened. Yeah,
that'll give me nightmares tonight. So and then we had the post match, which was Wheeler Yuta attacking naturally, as one does. Marina Shafir coming out, John Moxley coming out. Moxley seemed especially perturbed by Jay White's victory. And then Adam Page came out. The two, Page and Moxley, had a standoff in the aisle. Orange Cassidy, dressed up as a production crew member, had a cable and started choking Moxley with it. Very un-Orange Cassidy-like.
yes, yeah.
And so the baby faces teamed up, took out Moxley. They all hit their finisher on Moxley, interestingly enough. And then Christian Cage came out to watch over the proceedings with his contract as the Death Riders backed up the ramp. So we did touch on this in the open, Joel, but one other thing I want to point out is the role of Wheeler Yuta here. And we saw him, I guess Pac wasn't exactly pleased with his interference in the match. Pac went to ringside to shove him at one point. I'm sure he'll be blamed for this loss by Pac. What do you make of Wheeler Yuta's role in Death Riders, the way they're utilizing him?
Yeah, I mean he's kind of the odd man out in a lot of ways. I mean he's always been the one who's been kind of picked on, whether it was the first incarnation of the Blackpool Combat Club or this version of the Death Riders here, and he has a history with Orange Cassidy that they have alluded to in the from the past. So it seems like they're leaving open the opportunity for Wheeler Yuta to be the guy at some point to either get turned on, which they've teased that a lot, and they have done so at points in time.
I was going to say, how could you tell?
Up. Yeah, or he's going to be the guy to align with somebody else, maybe back with Orange Cassidy or the baby faces to turn on them. So he plays an interesting role in this whole Death Riders dynamic where they've driven off with their truck without him, so he's definitely not on the same level as the other guys within this. But yeah, it was interesting seeing this different version of Orange Cassidy, of him disguised as a production person strangling John Moxley. Just as a small kind of straighten your tie moment thing, is that I just didn't like the whole, like, in the moment of him strangling Moxley, that he has to take off his hood and remove his mask to get that pop from the crowd. That I think that was a spot that maybe Marina Shafir could have played by exposing Orange Cassidy and trying to pull him off. That it just felt like I noticed that a couple of times throughout Dynamite, where it's like there's these small little things of guys like trying to adjust either their ring gear or something, when I think in the moment, if they just kind of let things be, it would feel a little bit more real. Max Caster, an example, when he gets attacked by Swerve Strickland, he just very quickly, and the camera goes away, he's quickly trying to get his jacket off to get ready for the match. Adam Cole is on the ring apron while he's kicking, I think, was it Brian Cage? And he's pulling at his trunks and stuff. So again, straighten your tie stuff. It's not going to ruin the show for me, but those are certain things where I just think I would like for guys to just kind of live in the moment a little bit, even if it doesn't look perfect for that pop of exposing Orange Cassidy. That I think there's a more clean way to do that.
We had Jamie Hayter backstage addressing Julia Hart via the camera. She said that Hart's mind games don't work on her. She hyped the International Women's Cup, another tournament, and said she's ready to fight. And it seemed like Hayter wanted to be Julia Hart's opponent for Hart's comeback match when she is ready to return to the ring. We had the Chris Jericho fake news report that you alluded to earlier, Joel, the plugging ROH Final Battle. He said his opponent would be revealed on the weekly ROH TV show tomorrow, which can be viewed at watchroh.com. He also plugged AEW's other shows at Hammerstein Ballroom and talked about All in Texas on July 12th. And then we got a vignette for the return of Bandito, where in an old Western town, the sheriff putting up a wanted poster for Bandito. A couple comments on that. People thought it was a commercial for a credit card, or thought it was an ad for something other than AEW, and a bad one at that. So a couple things there to nosh on there, Joel. Any comments about any of those three segments that we saw there?
Yeah, I'll start with the talking about the Jamie Hayter and Julia Hart stuff. I mean, I thought that the vignette that they did for Julia Hart was, they're well produced stuff. What the beef that Julia Hart has with Jamie Hayter, it's still not super clear at this point. I mean, even Jamie Hayter is kind of like, I don't know what your deal is, but I'll come find me anytime, and we can go up against each other. So it's well produced. Something different on the show. So it definitely is making me more interested to seeing Julia Hart's return. She was really getting some traction last time. She had a great entrance. I thought in the ring she was really improving as champion. So whenever they announce for that match, I'm more interested in seeing that. Chris Jericho, they're always finding a spot for him to be on the show. It seems like, some weeks there's a little bit less of him, then there's a little bit more. They're trying to drum up some more interest for ROH, especially with a bigger pay-per-view coming up here, being at the Hammerstein Ballroom. So I'm curious to see what they do with Chris Jericho there, but I don't know how many more people it's going to get interested in subscribing to watch ROH to go to that show to see Chris Jericho as the champion. I think instead of watching ROH, I'll wait for the online report to see who it's going to be at the Hammerstein Ballroom. But I would assume it'll be it should be a pretty decent match. If they are trying to sell out that building. I don't know if it's 3 nights in a row, but certainly three events that they're trying to sell. So they're going to need something bigger there, and he's putting a tease out there for that. As far as Bandito, yes, it was odd. Not your typical AEW type of vignette for somebody. It did kind of feel like a corny, credit card commercial. That is a very apt comparison. But it's nonetheless, we're getting Bandito back, and I'm very happy about that. I think that that's somebody who has a lot of talent and charisma, who's been ready to go for some time after having a lot of delays from his wrist injury. That I'm just very curious to see, where he slots back onto the card. I do not want him to fall in line with a lot of the other luchadors where, get a good match, but they lose. I think that there's a lot more to Bandito that they can do with him. I think that he even could have been somebody who would have drummed up a lot more interest being a replacement in the Continental Classic by announcing his return coming into that. I think that would have given him a jolt of energy coming back into things. But, they put Commander in the Juice Robinson position, and I do not see Commander winning too many matches in the Continental Classic. I think that with him experiencing a lot of losses, it just kind of brings things down a little bit. Whereas if you inserted Bandito, that it could get people a little bit more excited to see, hey, are they going in a different direction with some of these matches? So it's an interesting way to bring him back. I like when they do vignettes, but yeah, this one was a bit cheesy, but nonetheless, I'm still excited for Bandito's return to AEW television.
I'll take cheesy. I wish they did more of these hype videos for guys returning. Lord knows they have enough guys on the injured list right now. You can't bring them all back the same way where they just come back and are a surprise or something like that.
Yeah.
You want to grow anticipation for some of these guys. So I would like to see them do this more often. Better quality, better ideas, sure, of course. But I think they've got the right idea with this in trying something a little different. So I'm totally okay with that. I want to ask about Jamie Hayter before we move on, though, because there are certain segments of the online audience that seem very high on Jamie Hayter. What do you think her ceiling is? Is she someone who can come in and be an AEW Women's World Champion, or do you not see her at that level?
I mean, definitely. She was getting really hot before she had that serious injury that took her out before All In last year. That she was really getting to a much higher level. The stuff that she was doing with Britt Baker was getting over and really bringing a lot more prestige to the women's division. And I think that that's what they need right now is some bigger name players to get involved there, where right now you have Mercedes and she's kind of going through the gauntlet of people that they're trying to heat up quickly for opponents for her. And then Mariah May, is in more convoluted story that they're doing with Mina Shirakawa, and then eventually they'll bring back Toni Storm. I mean, I presume, but Toni Storm says she's retired, so we don't know, Greg. If we're ever going to get the return of timeless Toni Storm. But yeah, I think that Jamie Hayter has proven herself that she's got a lot of talent there. It's just that it's going to take some time for her to get back to that spot, because certainly AEW has brought back some certain people after they've been off for an amount of time, and they're just not at that same level that they were before. Britt Baker being an example of that. It was very big when they brought her back to go up against Mercedes, and since that match, it's been feeling very cold for her. So Britt's not in a good spot, but I think that Jamie Hayter can overcome a lot of that stuff and get herself back into where you can see her in the title picture and eventually holding the championship.
Well, we know, Joel, that no wrestler has ever reneged on a retirement. So Toni Storm,
Never. Yeah.
She's gone for good, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There was somebody, Derek, in the chat saying that Jamie Hayter has Donna from That 70s Show vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely. I'm not sure if that's the look she's going for, but it's definitely a look. No, I agree. I think that she runs the risk of kind of getting lost in the shuffle because, as you mentioned, they have made a lot of additions. They've had a lot of returns since she was last active. And can you catch that lightning in a bottle again that she had seemingly before she got hurt? She cut a really good promo tonight. I thought that was very well done. She's got a good look, good character. I think she has a lot of the ingredients. It's just, is she going to get the time? Is she going to get the opportunity with so many other women and really so many slots, a few slots for the women? I think there was one women's match on this show, and I think there was like Mercedes Moné was the only woman to appear in the first hour of the show, and that was in a 90-second backstage segment. So on a week-to-week basis, there just are not a lot of opportunities for the women on AEW, especially now that you got the Continental Classic and you're devoting 20 minutes for each match. You want to count the entrances and stuff like that. 2 matches per show. That's almost half the show right there, just in Continental Classic matches going forward. So it's going to get even tougher and tougher, at least in the short term, for women like Jamie Hayter to kind of break through on TV every week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's, they should prioritize somebody like Jamie Hayter, because there definitely is value there. And if they want to take the women's division seriously, and get some more name people involved there, that she's somebody that they should target. Right now, Jamie Hayter's got the thing going on with Julia Hart. Whenever that happens, she's also involved in this tournament leading to I believe it's called the Wrestle Dynasty show for New Japan. That's going to be happening on January 5th. And it certainly seems like she is a contender to be involved in that 4-way match representing AEW.
Speaking of the women, Anna Jay versus Penelope Ford was our 5th match on Dynamite. Again, they did a quick video package chronicling the history between these two. Anna Jay did get the victory in about 9 minutes. Wasn't always smooth. I thought it was decent enough. Anna Jay has showed a lot of potential since returning from Japan, so it's really cool to see her improvement. And Penelope Ford kind of hit or miss in the ring. I didn't think she was great here tonight. She was decent. And I do think, Jay, rewarding someone who take steps to improve themselves the way Anna Jay has is the right call just from a company morale standpoint, but also, she does feel like a fresh challenger to Mercedes Moné. Anna Jay called her out after the match. Mercedes basically talked down to Anna Jay, saying if Chris Statlander, someone her size and her strength, could not beat me, what makes you think you stand a chance? Anna Jay slapped Mercedes across the face. Mercedes seemed ready to fight, but then backed down. So Anna Jay getting the upper hand there, I thought, was also important in that confrontation. But what did you think of the Anna Jay Penelope Ford match and the confrontation with Mercedes afterward?
Yeah, I very much agree with you, Greg, that I thought that this was a better showing for Anna Jay. They were really emphasizing that she has been improving. You could see that, with her in-ring ability there, and then also talking about that she's been on a large winning streak. So giving her a lot more credibility as to being a challenger. And I thought the way that the commentary team sold it, and then Anna Jay's performance with that, and then the afterwards, definitely is a good way to build up a good challenger for Mercedes. So The direction that they've gone with her, I think, has been good. There's a good template there to try and get behind somebody versus just kind of throwing them out there, and then just having a small dispute and then leading to a match that just doesn't feel as effective, or some of the stuff that they did to build up to the Chris Statlander Mercedes match before, where they had just kind of these really over the top type of segments that I did not think were very effective. And then you also had the Camille factor of it, and then ultimately they had a very, very good match between one another, but it just didn't it felt it just didn't have the prestige to it, whereas this is more kind of traditional wrestling booking. As somebody gets on a hot streak, they start talking about how they're improving, and that person shows a lot of fire and wanting to go up against them, and of course Mercedes chickens out. So giving you more of a desire to wanting to see that match versus just, the kind of put on back and forth like they did in the Chris Statlander feud.
The next segment was Renee Paquette, a sit-down interview with Mariah May about her upcoming match with Mina Shirakawa. May said whatever she does is the right decision, and she tried to frame giving her best friend a title match being a good thing and how they would be friends after the match. She just said that Mina, um, in different terms, likes to show off, and said that when she's in the ring with her, she's going to make her work. She talked about how weak the women's division is. Shirakawa then walked in with a bottle of champagne and basically said to Mariah, if you want to hit me, do it right in my face. Don't do it behind my back, like she tried to do it Full Gear. And she said the match was upcoming at Winter is Coming and told May to make her work. So a little bit of a different demeanor here from Mina Shirakawa. She was not all fun and happy. She seemed pretty serious this time, and I thought it was pretty effective to build that match. And Mariah May seems to go, intentionally or not, she seems to be going more and more off the deep end and becoming more and more delusional. And so that's kind of been fun to see as well. What do you think of this segment here, Joel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there are moments where it shines. It felt like we were in a lull period for Mariah May for a while, and now it feels like things are heating up again now that they have Mina Shirakawa back into the fold, because I think that these two are going to have really good chemistry against each other, so that it's a match that you can look forward to as far as the in-ring action and then the implications for what that means for the story, because we have to see Tony come back at some point, because she's been off of TV for so long. But Mina, she needed to have a little bit more of a serious tone to things, because she has been such a playful character in the way that Mariah had described her. But after the angle that they shot on the pay-per-view, we needed to see Mina show a lot more fire here and take this a lot more seriously. And I thought that she did so effectively here, talking about, if you're going to hit me in the face here, and gives her the champagne bottle, and really just confronting the heel. And so, Mariah is becoming more and more delusional here, and so falling into a similar pattern as Toni Storm. So I think that you're going to see a lot of symmetry there of how Toni Storm just became more and more delusional and falling into this character until she started turning more babyface and letting her guard down. And I think that you're going to see some more parallels, and that's how they're going to tell this story.
Zach in the chat says, don't overthink this one. Mariah's just evil. Well, that could also be the case, too. Can't rule that out. The main event was Brody King versus Claudio Castagnoli in a Continental Classic Gold League match. So this went into the overrun about, let's see if I timed the overrun, 8-minute mark. So they went about 6-7 minutes over. Tony Schiavone plugged at the very end Pac and John Moxley against Jay White and Orange Cassidy for next week, just announced. So Claudio Castagnoli getting the victory, gets 3 points in the Gold League, gets a low blow and then the neutralizer to beat Brody King. This was a really good match. I really enjoyed this. I thought that they did a good job working the arm of Brody King here, even though didn't really see, he was still throwing hard chops that made me wince even as the match went on. So tough as a $2 steak and all that, but Claudio gets the victory. Brody looks good in the loss. Stop me if you've heard that one before. This is a classic big man matchup. Thought they really worked well together, had good chemistry. no surprise, I don't think that Claudio gets the victory here. But what do you think of the match and Claudio getting the win?
Yeah, Claudio has been putting on some really great performances in his time in AEW. That he's really shown what a great quality wrestler that he is, and this was no exception here. They're certainly wanting to build him up with more wins, as being a good second in the Death Riders group. That you want to keep him strong. Throughout this tournament, but also throughout his time with that group, that you want him to be a serious threat. And Brody King, I mean, every time he's out there, that guy gets over. I mean, he's kind of always been thrown. He's one of those wrestlers that's just kind of he blows with the wind as far as is he a baby face or in a heel role? It really depends on who he's going up against. But there is something that is a draw about him to the crowd, where every time he gets out there, people are really into the stuff that he's doing because he is a very good wrestler, and he just hasn't been put into a great spot where they're really going with him. He's held the trios championship before, but just as a singles wrestler, I think fans are wanting to see them go with him a little bit. But, as we always talk about in the pecking order of other wrestlers that are ahead of him, there's just so many other talents that I don't see them going, really going in hard with him. But he is somebody who's really good for this tournament because I think that he is a guy who does have a lot of unique charisma that he can get people behind him and put on these good showings like he did in this match.
Yeah, and he's also, I mean, he's a guy who's very flexible in terms of the kind of matches he can have. He can have really good matches with bigger guys like Claudio Castagnoli. He can have really good matches with smaller guys like Darby Allin. He's a good base for those kind of wrestlers. And so, I mean, he's multifaceted in that way. And I think that's what makes him good for this tournament in particular is you're going to see all kinds of wrestlers up and down the tournament. So being able to mesh well with a number of different types of wrestlers, different size wrestlers, really is an advantage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he is proven himself to be a very dynamic guy, like you said, that he can go up against anybody, and that's what makes him very good for this tournament. Is that the way they've set it up is that they have this kind of small group of people who have a good chance of going further in this tournament. The way they've set it up this year is that the top person on one block is going to face the second person in the other block, and vice versa, and then leading into the final. And then you need some other guys who can take some losses but look good in there, and still put on some quality performances. There's nobody who's kind of filling out the proverbial like Toru Yano role like that he would have in the G1 Climax matches, which was basically like a night off for a lot of those wrestlers going through these grueling matches. That they are trying to put in good quality wrestlers, even though there's a lot of guys where it's just they're not, you're not going to see them going into the finals of their block. But certainly there's always going to be quality matches with everybody who's involved in this.
Well, before we go, Joel, since that is the end of AEW Dynamite for December 4th, we do have a super chat question
Mm-hmm.
from Lady B, and want to hit on this. She said, with brand split convos happening around AEW right now, if you had to choose 8 core acts or wrestlers, at least 2 women, to build Dynamite and Collision around, who would make your list? So I have the AEW roster up, and I'm just gonna go.
I'll get it up too.
Let me write them down here. I got a paper and a pen too. Okay.
All right.
So 8 acts is that I don't know if that's 8 for each show or 8 overall, maybe 4 on a show. Let's say 8 on each show. Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm just gonna go down and pick the names that I want first, which is okay. I want Swerve, I want Cole, I want Copeland, I want Page. Give me all the Adams that you have. I want them all. Let's see. I like that. Of course, this goes. So let's Hurt Syndicate is, since they say acts, I'm gonna put the Hurt Syndicate as one act.
Okay.
I guess the Callus family is an act that you got to include. So I'll do that. FTR, put them in there. The Young Bucks, put them in there. I'll say the Elite. Let's put Okada in with them.
There you go.
Luckily, there's enough acts where if you split it up, I mean, you got a lot here. Let's do these guys. I mean,
At
he's
least two
injured.
women.
Yeah, he's injured, but I'll include him. Um, they have a big roster. Wow. It's gonna be hard to narrow it down. Um, let's see. This makes for great viewing, I'm sure, as we're just going through and listing all the
Well, yeah, I'm going through the roster right now too, and I wrote down some names, and like you read it well. Of you could put it in acts, so different groups and stuff. I just kind of have more of the just individual wrestlers themselves on here, which I don't think my list is going to be all that surprising. From Yeah, it's a lot of the people who are already being pushed, but these are the people I would really prioritize, and try and elevate them into a bigger level than they're already at.
yeah. Two women. I'm gonna do two women per show because I think I want to do that. Uh, and that's not counting the women who may already be in groups too.
Okay.
So let me do this.
So are you separating it out for two, like a Dynamite and a Collision, 8 acts for each?
Yeah, I think so because
Okay.
I got enough.
Okay. All right.
Now it's a matter of like trying to figure out who do you put with who. It's one thing to have all of these acts, but it's another to try to figure out who goes where. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I've got 17, 18 male acts. And um so I got to narrow it down. I want 8 on each show. So that means 6 men and 2 women at least. 6 and 2.
Okay.
Um I don't think I'm going to be able to separate them. Like I don't know how I would even begin to like say, "No, I want this person on Dynamite and I want this person on Collision." So I'm not
Right.
sure. I would have to like I would have to have a lot more time to think about that than what this is
Yeah.
allowing. So let me just say, um I'll go through first. I
Okay.
gotta have Swerve. Um so
Yep.
I'm going to put him. I'm going to put So let me try to even out the baby faces and heels too. Swerve babyface, I'll go MJF heel. I'll go um I'll go Omega. Oh, that's gonna be too much star power on that show. I'll go Orange Cassidy as babyface. I'll go Callis family as heels. So that gives me 4. And what are we doing? 8. So I need 2 more
Yeah.
males. Let me do um let me do Ricochet as a babyface. And let me do I want see I got too many baby faces now. And let me do
Well, it's
I
AEW. You can just flip
I
them
like
whenever
I
you
like
want.
Sammy Guevara as a heel. All right.
Okay. Okay.
And then for the women, give me Willow. Got to have Willow, and give me Mariah May on one side. So
Okay.
give me one side for you, and then we'll do my other side.
Um, well, see, I just was collecting a lot of the names on here. So it's, again, like I don't have it just totally split up, evenly, but certainly if I'm to just kind of pick out some of the names, like I don't have it just by group. I just kind of have the names of people that I would really want to focus on. And that would be Will Ospreay, definitely. Just such a talent. There's not a lot more to say about it other than it's Will freaking Ospreay. Kyle Fletcher, you need to build up a young guy in the heel role, and going on that same path. Jack Perry has proven a lot too. That I think that you can have kind of one of the shows too. I mean, being more around trying to build up a lot of these younger guys. Um, uh, uh, to get them to that next level, and Takeshita as well, is somebody that I think that they really need to focus on and make him just such a priority of him also being a special talent. Swerve Strickland, certainly. Um, MJF, absolutely. Where is that? How many is that right now that I did? Let's take off that there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, certainly John Moxley is going to be one of them. So that gets me 6. Yeah, and absolutely, I would put a lot more into Toni Storm. I think that she just brought a lot more fun to the women's division. Whether it is the timeless gimmick or not, I think that she just is somebody who's she just brought a lot more star power to what they were doing than they had before. And then I would say Jamie Hayter. I think Jamie Hayter, we talked about, is someone who is definitely a talent that's not as hot as she once was, but I think you can get her back to that level.
Yeah, on my other side, I have the Hurt Syndicate. I've got Adam Page. I've got Kenny Omega. I've got the Death Riders. I've got Jay White, Will Ospreay, and my women are Jamie Hayter and Chris Statlander. And I think it's really interesting to think that, some of the women that I'm skipping over, Mercedes Moné, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, are some of the biggest names, but not necessarily the most effective of the women's division. So that's kind of interesting. A couple of names I wrote down that I didn't make my list. I had Adam Cole, Adam Copeland, FTR, the Elite are not on there. I probably should put them on there. Danny Garcia, Eddie Kingston. So I mean, it's hard when you limit it like that, and I guess it's more fun. I mean, it's more challenging because you're really trying to narrow it down, and you're really trying to say, okay, who are the really key players who would be the difference makers on either of these brands, whether it's the men or the women.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes it difficult, but that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just some more names here that I had was just Darby, Hangman, Kenny Omega. When he's back, I think that he could just be how much of a difference maker. I don't know. It's so hard to say, but I think that he just brings so much more to this promotion, so much more heart and soul when he comes back into the fold. FTR, they could be getting so much more out of those guys than they are currently. Hurt Syndicate, the Young Bucks, again, kind of those original guys who brings a lot more. Willow, Mariah May are some of the women that I had on here. So I think a lot of the same names that you and I had, because I largely have written off, the people that were just not, I don't think we're going to see on television again. That would be, Ricky Starks, who I think is a great talent, the Lucha Brothers. I don't think that we're going to see them again, especially with their aspirations to go to WWE. But, I left off Adam Cole. I think just right now he's been really cold, and I'm not seeing what I need to see out of him right now to kind of put him into one of those people that I want to focus on. I think that the ship has sailed a bit on him. I think there's still value in him. It's just when we're asked to make a list of the people that I would prioritize on either one of the brands, he just doesn't come to mind. Same thing with Adam Copeland. So I'm going back to back on those Adams. Adam Copeland, I think that there's, the WWE nostalgia with him, but he certainly falls into the category of somebody where this is like the post wrestling career for him, or the post WWE career, where I don't think it's a continuation of his legacy. He's not in his prime anymore. He is more of a special attraction, and he's been off television for a bit. So he's cooled off, but when he comes back, I think that he will be, he'll be slotted back into where he was before. Like I said, that special attraction. Danielson, his full-time career is over, from what he says, that he'll be a special attraction to come in every once in a while. But he's just not somebody that I'm going to prioritize on my show. There's other people like Daniel Garcia. I've been hard on him before, that I just think that there's been a lot of damage done to him, that I think it's going to be hard to overcome a lot of that stuff, even though he's holding the TNT championship. Eddie Kingston, is somebody that I like a lot, but he is, he would fall on more of the older side, and I would really prioritize my promotion if I was doing it really on a lot of the work rate. He's had great matches. He's great on the microphone, but I just don't think that he falls into the people I'm prioritizing right now. I guess if I were to put some more thought into it, Jay White probably would have sneaked down there into one of those positions, but Otherwise I'm think I'm largely satisfied as I'm scrolling through the roster again right now. That I think some of these people have been damaged or defined at a certain point, where I think a lot of those acts are probably the people that I would go with right now.
Well, we passed. Lady B says we did a great job. So wonderful.
I'm
Should
glad. Yeah.
Yeah, should Tony consider a brand split? So, this is we had sort of a soft brand split when CM Punk was on there. He had his guys on Collision, and then we had the folks that stayed away on Dynamite. And I thought it did serve to make the shows feel different. And I think that was something that was really necessary. And I think that's something that still is very necessary if you're going to ask fans to watch Dynamite and Collision. I think you have to give them a reason to watch both of those. And making wrestlers exclusive to that show. If I like Eddie Kingston and I know Eddie Kingston is only appearing on Collision, I'm going to watch that show. And if I like Jeff Jarrett and Jeff Jarrett's only, I don't know why I'm picking these particular names, but if Jeff Jarrett's only appearing on Dynamite, that gives me a reason to watch now both shows. And it doesn't make me kind of burnt out from watching all of this AEW TV that all kind of feels the same. So I am in WWE since it started. I've been a proponent of the brand split in WWE, and I think for a long time they just never did it correctly. And I think the brand split that they have now shows that it can work very effectively. Um, and so I do think, and I know Wade has disagreed with me before on this, that AEW does have enough talent for a hard brand split if they wanted to. I don't know that that's the direction they're going
Yeah.
to go, but I mean, is that something you think that Tony Khan should be considering once the calendar turns to 2025?
I think there is good reason to consider it. I think it's just going to take more than just thinking of the just the because like when we talked about the CM Punk soft brand split that they had with Collision, you still largely had all your major stuff happening on Dynamite. So you would need to find a way. I mean, it's so hard with Collision being defined to what it is, Rampage being defined to what it is, but certainly there's that Shockwave trademark that's out there. So maybe if somebody picks that up, you can try and reframe that as, another really important show if you do away with Collision and Rampage. But you would just want to have it so that, you're spreading your important angles across both shows. You don't want to burn out the audience, but you need to make those shows feel important more than just seeing a collection of wrestlers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another reason I think WWE is doing it right is Raw and SmackDown both feel like must see in very different ways. You've got
Mhm.
the SmackDown where you've got Cody Rhodes, you've got the Bloodline, but on Raw you've got like CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, and Seth Rollins, and big stuff happens on both shows. So you do need to spread the wealth, and I think if you do a hard brand split and you have top stars on both brands, you are going to inevitably have big things happening on both shows. So I think that kind of takes care of itself, really, if you do have a brand split like that.
Yeah, I mean it's the only fear that I have is that Tony is already spread so thin with everything that he's doing that you would want to make sure that there is some infrastructure that's in place so that there is equal attention or there's enough attention that's given to both of those shows to where one does not just kind of fall into the background like Collision has largely has. Right now there's a little bit more emphasis on it with some of the Continental Classic matches happening on there, as well as Rampage is getting some of those as well during its swan song. So it's I think it is going to take more than just having some bigger stars on there. That you want to make sure that there are angles that feel important. There are storylines that are exclusive to each of those shows. And set up some parameters as far as, are there going to be champions that are exclusive to those shows? And it does the world champion float between both those shows? Because you do not want to add a second world championship. That would be not a good thing for AEW. That would be, again, following more in the path of WWE. And that you need to create more prestige for the championships that you already have. You have so many of them on this show that, by spreading those out a little bit, and then having maybe a couple like the tag team championship, the world championship, floating between both of those shows.
One thing we can definitely agree on is they need to make some rules and follow them. That's the key to making this whole thing work. So
for more than 3 weeks.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
4 weeks. 4 weeks is good, right?
If we could get 4 weeks, it's a step in the right direction, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Joel, thank you for joining me here tonight. It's been a blast catching up with you and talking AEW Dynamite with you. I know you talk AEW Dynamite often on your audio show. Tell us about it and when folks can find it.
Absolutely, Greg. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I'm glad we can make this happen. But then I talked to the other Greg Canner, every Friday morning. We record the All Elites Conversation Club podcast, where we talk about all the AEW news. We go through stuff on Dynamite, certainly leading into each of the pay-per-views. We preview those shows, and we just have a really good, fun dynamic with one another, that we're trying to find the positives in AEW, wanting to see them do better. So we have very fun chemistry with one another. Zach, who's been a part of the comments here, he's always contributing to the show with some really fun trivia and some good aspects and perspective on AEW. So it's always good to get some different voices involved there. And we really encourage people to contribute to the show, give us, fun questions like Lady B had for us on this show in the super chat. Greg and I love doing those different, trying to, split up the roster or any sort of hypothetical questions. So you can contribute to our show at allelitecc@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, hope fans check that out, and hope everybody checks out everything that PWTorch has to offer on YouTube and PWTorch.com. And before we go, I want to plug becoming a member of the Torch, which I will pull up right here. Subscribe to PWTorch VIP, gain access to Wade Keller's full audio, start to finish rundown of TV shows with his segment-by-segment analysis on the Wade Keller hotline, and all of the other bountiful audio shows we have. And if you enjoyed our discussion here tonight, Wade is here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. I don't know how he does it, covering Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown post shows here on YouTube. So if you enjoyed this and you want to make sure to give them a listen as well. As for me, I write a full page column in each and every week's Torch newsletter if you're a VIP member, and also a VIP audio show, Greg Parks Out Loud, where I read my column and offer additional in-depth thoughts on the topic at hand. So if you're a VIP member, that is available for you too as well. You can follow me on socials at Greg M. Parks. And Joel, I believe you are at Joel Dehnel.
That's right.
Absolutely. So, Joel, a pleasure talking to everybody in the chat. And thank you for joining us here on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for AEW Dynamite.